Hi, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming out to Laravel Austin Meetup. We are trying to meet every month and kind of discuss PHP and Laravel specifically. And I think the goal is to, I think there'll be a couple of ways we're going to be structuring it. The first talk is going to be sort of a more informative kind of thing, and sort of a more overarching, and then we're going to get into some specifics, like actual code, and then at the end we'll just do questions and just group discussion, that kind of stuff. So start off with Ransom continuing a talk he started in February.
About Southwest.
Yeah.
Apparently it's bigger than Laravel also.
Yes. Okay, Ransom.
Sweet. Yeah, so like Terry said, I had a 12-piece talk, or a 12-point talk, broken down into 2 segments. And it's basically just kind of covering what I titled 12 Characteristics of Quality Design in Software. And I kind of base it on Steve McCormick's, what's his name? What's his last name? Do you know? Steve, anybody know?
Don't you have
He's supposed to be popular, I don't know. There's a book over there. Yeah. His book, which is, from, I believe, like the early 90s. So it's a little bit dated. So it's an interesting, thing to read and kind of mold that into, how Laravel can accentuate those characteristics of quality design. So that's kind of what we're going to do. We're going to go over the bullet points of quality design and kind of see how Laravel kind of ties into those, and then just talk about it in general. So, and this is, a bit of a discussion as well. So we might collaborate on a few of these bullet points as I go through the slides. So the 12 points, 6 that I covered last 2 months ago: intellectual manageability, low complexity, ease of maintenance, minimal connectedness, extensibility, and reusability. And now we're going to cover the next 6. So you have to bear with my first 6 slides. All right, so the next 6 principles get a little bit more in depth and kind of cover, I guess, like the high level whenever you're designing, a software application, or, I guess just a regular web app or mobile app or anything like that. So one of the terms that they used in the book, which was new to me, is high fan in. And so what is high fan in exactly? Well, that's a good question. High fan in kind of represents sharing a high number of classes that call a given class. So whenever you have a class that basically can have other classes that use it, and I have a diagram here. So you have, let's say, an awesome class that gets used by other classes over and over and over again. And so they're calling this high fan in, such to the point that if you're writing a class and you're going to the effort of, putting together this routine, then you don't want to just have it used once. You don't want to, in my example, a bad example of fan in, I created a class that is called user interface, and it's going to make a date for the footer as the years go on. It says copyright, 2014, whatever, which is a horrible example, but also a bad example of fan in, because that is really like one use for that only, and it's just not going to get reused by other parts of your application. So you really want to try and think of ways that whenever you're developing your application, that you can increase or maximize the potential of your individual classes and routines, so that other classes can use that information. So that brings us to, what is a good example of high fan in per se? And, this is, I guess, my novice showing. I don't really have too many good examples, but one that I did use a lot in my applications, for instance, Gravatar Make. It's a utility class, and that can be used anywhere throughout your application. Like, say your user class is going to call this, through a filter in Laravel. So every time, you pull down your user data, you're going to call out to a utility gravatar make class that will then return the user's gravatar image. So that type of example, I guess, gives us the high fan-in approach that is number 7. So another thing that Laravel uses, auth user, it's used throughout the core of the framework. And so that, to me at least, was a good example of Laravel using a high fan-in approach on some of their classes. So does anybody else have anything like, what's a good example of a class that's used by other classes in Laravel specifically?
SDR.
Yeah, okay. I guess, trying to think. I guess Carbon, kind of utility. Anybody else? What's that?
Q.
Yeah, definitely. All right, cool. So does that make sense to everybody? Pretty basic concept. So, and then kind of the opposite approach to that is that you want to have low fan out, which basically indicates that any one given class makes 0 or a limited number of calls to other classes, or the information sharing from a particular class is limited or restricted completely. And there's really no better way to describe that than just the single responsibility principle. If you have a class that magnifies single responsibility, then it's not having to, go outside of its encapsulation and try and grab information from other sources. It has one sole purpose, and that's highly maintainable. So the graph for that, or the chart, the image for this, in the top left-hand corner, the class is the big circle, and it's going out to other informations. It's bad, and this is a class seeking. Let's see. The class is seeking information from 2 other classes, and that's like not technically a bad thing, but it's kind of meh. And then the ultimate in low fan out to achieve the best possible outcome is to basically have a class that is contained within itself. And there was actually a study in the book that it gave, and it said that, interestingly enough, 12% of classes that called more than 7 other classes had no errors. So only 12%. And then 32% of classes that called 2 to 7 classes had no errors. 42% of classes that called only 1 other class had no errors. So, I mean, you can see there, the less, outreaching that you're doing in your classes, the more, or the less susceptible they are to breaking, basically, less maintenance that you have to call on them. So, single responsibility there, that's kind of how I interpreted it. The next, which is number 9, is portability. And this one was pretty easy. Portability, basically, whenever you're designing software, is designing the system so that you can easily move it to another environment. This is, I guess, the whole coding, or I guess PHP specifically, has come a long way in regards to that. But Laravel specifically, definitely implements this principle, in my opinion, just because you have things like the repository pattern already in place. You have the ability to have your system and then code to an interface so that you don't have to worry about, what type of, payment provider that you're using, or what type of email notification system that you're using. You can basically code to an interface, and Laravel implements this. From step 1, you start to see it, and so you naturally gravitate towards programming in the same manner. So Laravel specific examples, the database drivers, for instance. This is exemplary of portability, because you can at any point switch to Mongo or Redis or MySQL or whatever you want. So I mean, this is like basic, pretty much Laravel. Also the cache drivers, different types of caching that you want to do. So number 9 on my list is portability, and then I think I have, It's a pretty cool effect I did there, right? So I actually have a better example later on that'll talk about interfaces, so I'll get to that in a bit. Let's see, Laravel use cases, databases in the cache, and what else? Does anybody have like an example of repository pattern outside of database and cache?
OmniPay.
What's that?
OmniPay.
Okay.
That's as all major providers, major
Yeah.
payment providers. And I think it's still the same.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, I mean, because, you know, these are like high level concepts, right? Like, well, you know, how can I, you know, code in a portable fashion? It's kind of difficult to kind of wrap your brain around that, but whenever you start using Laravel, you see these best practices being implemented, and it makes it a lot, I mean, you see it and then you understand it, and then you can implement it yourself, and so you kind of naturally, you gradually and naturally kind of gravitate towards programming in this manner. So the framework helps set that up for you. So number 10 is leanness, like this guy. All right. And leanness basically means that you're designing the system so that there's no extra parts. And what I really kind of felt that this particular item was a little bit less prevalent than the rest because of the advances that have been made. And I'll get into why in just a second. But the importance of this design principle for quality design and software is you have to remember that your code is going to be developed, tested, reviewed, maintained like by other people. So you're not the necessarily, sometimes you are the overseer and the godfather of your entire code base, but most of the time if you're developing on a big framework like Laravel, you're going to have to deal with other people. And so you know, you want a framework that is already lean, and then you want to be coding in a lean mindset such that you don't get spaghettied all over the place. But like I said, it's not as relevant on a high level to me anymore because we have things like test suites. We have things like package managers that let our code base be like, you know, kind of huge if you think about it. You know, pulling in all these packages, Symfony, and like, you know, all these different things to make the framework work. But now, like, we don't even have to worry about that. Those packages maintain themselves, and we're that much closer to having a lean design in our framework. So I felt on a high level it wasn't quite as relevant, but on a lower level, the frameworks by nature help keep the software that you're writing lean because they make you adhere to particular practices. So if you're reading the docs, like there's a particular way that you have to code, even say your front end. So in Laravel, you're probably going to be coding your front end with a blade templating technology. So, you know, that to me, someone from the outside coming in would also know, you know, the blade framework, assuming that they read the docs. And the frameworks by nature help kind of keep everybody on the same page. So it keeps your applications linked. So anyways, nevertheless, code clean, don't spaghetti code, and keep it lean. So number 11, which is next to last, is standard techniques. And this one, I use my lifeline on this one. So this is basically, the more a system relies on exotic pieces, the more intimidating it is for someone trying to understand it for the first time. Again, kind of ties into leanness. You know, if you're having someone you know, take a look at your code, manage your code, and you're not adhering to standard techniques or standard practices, tactics, etc. for your code base, then how are they going to be able to, in a timely manner, you know, help you out with that application? So the way that I kind of tied Laravel into this, and how does Laravel help us use this coding practice, is through the community. And so I kind of felt that, you know, from the very beginning when I started, you know, using Laravel, which is probably 14, 15 months ago, something like that, the community was a lot stronger. We were actually just talking about it. And not stronger in the sense of like number of people, but the ability to get help from Taylor or, you know, the higher ups. You know, I mean, I've had multiple conversations with Jeffrey Way, like just in the IRC channels about different things. And I don't know if that's still, available or not, maybe, but I always felt that the community was really mature and strong, and it definitely helps promote standard techniques in your designing of the applications. The Laravel docs are amazing. There's obviously 2 IRC channels that are big with the Laravel. Laracast, if you don't know what that is, please go sign up for that. You'll probably shake my hand next month or something. But in the forums too, they have the paste bin or whatever. I don't know when that came out, but there's a lot of activity going on in the forums as well. So I mean, you can pretty much find out whatever you want to know, and the best practices, best techniques to use in Laravel. So it's kind of like we're all in this together, and you can jump from one Laravel project to another, and you're going to feel comfortable with it. So
there's lots of books out also.
Yeah, see, Terry's got a book. You can buy that book. It's a plug, shameless. So yeah, I really liked, that was a big part of it for me, because I feel that if, I'm almost excited, like if, someone said, hey, like you're gonna work on a Laravel project this week, I'd be like, hell yeah, that's great. And it's not, do you get that excited about working on WordPress or something? Sorry. Code Igniter, whatever. And the last of these, which is one of the more difficult concepts of quality design, and difficult, I guess, is a relative term, but stratified design. What does that mean? It's like a buzzword or something. Nobody knows. But basically, it's defined as keeping the levels of decomposition stratified so that you can view the system at any single level and get a consistent view. And when I read that, it didn't help me a bit. I was still really confused. Stratified makes me think of like outer space or something. But basically, there's a couple of things here. Again, with the solid principles, this kind of, to me, like lines up exactly with dependency inversion, and you're just working with layers of abstraction and, kind of thinking in a modular way for your code base. And obviously, Laravel does implement that, and this is kind of the more specific example of the interface that I was talking about, and this is a very popular acronym that's used. See TAMFI, which is code to a mother effing interface. So if you don't know what an interface is, or you haven't got into that, I'll be honest, a year and 6 months ago or so, like this was, a pretty new thing to me. I've heard people talk about it, and like I just hadn't used it in any sort of development environment really. So, Laravel really brought this out and made it drastically clear why this was an important concept. And so I'm just going to go back here real quick to my cool little thing that I have here, and I'm just going to assume that everyone knows what an interface is, but I'll just explain this to myself again. So basically, if you have, a system that you're designing or an application, and you want to, say, send out notifications to your users, then you might approach that by saying, okay, well, I need to integrate with MailChimp. I need to integrate with, Constant Contact or something, so I can send emails to these guys. So I would immediately jump over to start working with the repository, which in this case would be MailChimp, a Constant Contact, and start coding that straight to my system. But the whole idea behind repository pattern is that instead of doing that, you write up a contract for your system, and this contract says things like, okay, this notification system can send a notification. It can, create a campaign or a list or something like that. And it's completely agnostic of whether you're using MailChimp or whether you're using Constant Contact, or maybe your notification system is completely abstract and you want to notify your users through SMS text messages, something like that. So, if you start to think about it like that, you should be able to pop in repository A or B or C or D whenever you want, and not have to affect the system and go and find all the places that, you know, that class is called and recode it. So basically stratification, you know, and coding in modules is kind of like using the interface repository pattern, coding to the interface such that you don't have to go back and redo all the work every single time you change your repositories. Does that make sense? I'm sure it does. So, anyways, that's the 12 different facets of quality design in software, and I'm done. So that's it.
All right, in February, Meetup started on LaravelAustin.com, but had some technical glitches. And so basically this is where it's at the moment. I figured out the technical glitches, and I've got a nice little landing page. So basically that was just doing a pretty standard install of Laravel. I've got the file sitting here in this Laravel Austin folder. And there's a number of different ways. If you on the Laravel docs, there's a number of different ways to oh, is there? Laracast. Yeah, I go to Laracasts a lot. Yeah, so on the docs, there's a ton of different ways to show about installing and using the Laravel's FAR file, creating it through Composer, all that kind of fun stuff. So after all the installation, and I set up a virtual server. This is using Apache, and I believe I've got MySQL set up here. Let's get rid of this. No, I didn't set it up. Okay. I'm going to create a database. And I'll call it Laravel Austin. Okay, so the goal for this is to create a news system for the website. And hopefully I'll try and stick to the 12 characteristics of solid design, but I make no promises. Let's see. I already had it open. Okay, here's all my Laravel packages, or all my Laravel files. My index is living here in the public folder, and everything else is out here. And this is all pretty basic. I think the only thing I changed after installing it was this main blade. No, not that one. This hello. And I just echoed out this variable, which was, it's just coming from the route. Okay, so here in the routes file, this is going to basically just the root of the site, and I'm setting this one variable, LATX, and that's getting passed into that hello PHP file, and this isn't a blade file, but we will make blade files. So the first thing you got to consider is kind of what we want, how we want to make this. And with the blog system, I mean, we're all pretty familiar with blogs, so got to think of, you know, what's going to be, what information do we want to have for the blog or for the news site? What are all the table structures, the fields that we want to save, that kind of thing. So the big thing is going to be the posts. That's going to be, it could be articles, it could be, we could call it, I don't know, what else do you call it, news, posts or articles, but it'll probably stick with posts because that tends to be a typical blog thing. Then we're probably going to need a user or multiple users that can add news or add posts. And then we may have a comment section. And I mean, we could add a whole lot more, like favoriting, saving, that kind of stuff. But I think for now, to start off with, we'll just keep it to these three things. And with this idea, each of these things basically becomes an object. So there's a post is an object, a user is an object, a comment is an object. So I mean, in the idea of object-oriented programming, the objects are the things. And it's a very specific thing, and that's kind of, you're going to write your code for those specific things. So we're going to have a post. We need a way to add a post. We need a way to delete a post. We need a way to update a post. We've got users. We're going to log in, or add, update, delete, that kind of things. But we're also going to be able to log in a user. I guess that's probably about it. Comments, adding a comment, updating a comment, deleting a comment, pretty standard stuff. So those are the three objects we're going to work with. And using the handy, let's see, I think I got it installed. We are going to use the Jeffrey Ways generators, which are a very handy little utility for Artisan, and it cuts off a lot of time on creating a lot of boilerplate stuff. So the first thing we're going to do, or the next thing we're going to do, is try and figure out what columns we're going to need for each of our objects, or what bits of information we need for each of our objects. So for posts, we'll need the actual post. What else? Subject, like title, that kind of thing. Dates, who the author is. That's pretty good. I think that's a good start. So, subject or title, the actual post itself, the date we posted it. I mean, Laravel comes with a created at and an updated kind of by default, so those will kind of get added automatically. And then we'll add in a user. And we'll probably go with, since we're going to have our user objects in a separate table, we'll use the user ID and just add that to the post. So it'll be, so our fields are going to be title, post, dates, user ID. Now with this handy generator, we can make a migration, which is basically just a way to create our database structure in a file, and then that way we can run that same migration no matter what server we're on, what computer we're on. So if we're sharing the code, we can basically just upload all our code with the migration files, and then another person can download the code, run the migration, it installs all the database stuff, and we're good to go. So So I'm going to create a post.
Those generators come built in? Or did you install
So you
them?
have to get.
You have to install it. Yeah, I'll here in the composer.json file.
Yeah. Where's that on? It's I'm on GitHub at Jeffrey Ways. Oh, you're on the. Were they ever included? I thought at one point they were.
Well, there is some generator. There are some generators included, but it doesn't have. I think there is it creates or.
There's a Laravel 3 that had like generators. Because I remember them being there at one point in time, and then confused when they disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just in I'm using DevMaster. It's probably better to stick with to use an actual version, but for development, I don't really think it matters all that much. And basically, doing this when you run the composer update, it'll just install everything. It'll download that package. It'll download all the packages that package needs, install it, and you're good to go. So using that, I'm going to create a post table, and you know what? I don't even remember how all the things. So you're going to generate migration. You got your fields that you're going to use. I don't think you need any of this other stuff, and then the migration name. So I'll go longhand. So PHP artisan. And for anybody that doesn't know, Artisan is the command line tool that ships with Laravel, and it does a lot of boilerplate stuff for you that you can automate and do a lot of cool stuff, like run the generators package. Migration post table. Fields equals. Let's see, title. And that will be a string. So it would be posts or body. Does it really matter? I'll just do post. Well, no, that would get confusing with the verbs. I'll do body. And that will be a text. User ID. That is a integer, and it will be unsigned. I believe that's it. We'll see if it errors out. Nope, good. So after you run that, it basically creates that migration file here in app databases migrations. So here's what it looks like. Injects those or grabs those. We're going to use those. This Illuminate. Those are the Laravel packages. Create post table, extends the migration, and this is what happens when we run the migration. It's going to create a table named posts, and then this increments ID is automatic, so it just automatically adds incremental ID. And this messed up.
Can you do primary keys and?
Yeah, you can do the primary keys, relationships, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Oh well, yeah. This table increments ID is actually this automatically gets set as the primary key.
It implies that.
Mm-hmm.
Increments us.
Right.
Okay.
What was the string? It's a title. No idea what went on there. Let's see, it was text. And then the timestamps, that comes, that gets added in automatically if you don't. It used to be if you didn't have that, it would still get added in. I don't know if that's the case anymore, but this will basically just create a created at timestamp field in your database and a updated at.
It has a deleted at column now.
Does that get added in automatically?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know there was if you did the, that you could add it in, but I didn't know if that came. Okay, so then it would also be a deleted at, which is useful for if you want to do what they call soft deletes, which is a way of, if you're going through the Eloquent ORM, it will only pull in information that isn't been soft deleted. So it's still in the database, and you can still get at it actually fairly easily. But if you're going through Eloquent, it makes it a lot simpler to delete it, keep all the data, but not show it to the user. Okay, and then if we were to do a rollback on our migrations, it just basically drops the table. So we'll run this just to kind of see. Oh, actually, the first thing I got to do is probably set up my database. I'm going to set up my configuration here.
And the user ID is just like the author, like
Yeah, I'll be creating a users table, and that's going to be keyed to the ID of the users table. And I'll just go here. So in here, this is my database configuration file. I'm just going to stick, I think localhost will be fine. The database will be Laravel Austin. I believe that should be it. Yeah, so that's the MySQL configurations, and I believe that should be all, and we'll find out pretty soon. Great. And that's going to be it. That will do two things. If you haven't installed a migrations table yet, which is basically just a table in your database that keeps a track of all the migrations you've run, running this command will automatically create that migrations table as well as run the actual migration. So after it creates the table, it'll go through the migrations files that you created, create anything that hasn't been created, and you're good to go. And errors. There was an unexpected on line 18. All right.
So that migrations thing is kind of like a Liku base?
Like a what?
Like Liku base, it manages your database with...
Yeah, and I mean, it's a way to keep your data structure and be able,
metadata in...
right, and that way, and you can keep it in version control and track it, and if you need to make any changes, you're not going to break anything, you can always go back. String.
Adam doesn't autosave.
Did I not save it?
No.
Oh yeah, well that would probably make a... There we go, okay, that was simple things. Okay, so now if I refresh this, it should be good to go. So yeah, so the first thing it did was it created this migrations table. And this is the name of the migration. That's in our database thing. And then it created our post table. And here's the structure. So if you do just a string as the type, it'll do a varchar 225. And you can actually edit that. You can actually set another number. That's just the 225 is the 255 is the default. Text is just a regular text field. Integer just integer. And these are the timestamps. Okay, it didn't add deleted at. But there is a way, let me see here. In the migrations. Is it called soft deletes?
Yeah.
Okay. So this will actually show a good reason why migrations are so cool. So now I can, what I want to do, I'll explain. It's got the created at and the updated at for the timestamps, and that's generated automatically on the when you run table timestamps. But I'm going to add an updated at or deleted at, which will be for our soft deletes. And since I've already run this one migration, I'm going to create another migration to update that table with the deleted at. Yeah, you know what?
Because you cannot touch the file that you already created, right?
Well, there's two ways. I could go back and I could roll back that migration, update the file, and then rerun it.
It keeps a like MD5 hash for the, okay.
Right. Well, it keeps it basically just knows what the file is and if it's been run or not.
You wouldn't want to edit a file that any other person has.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, in this instance, it would be no problem because I've not touched anything at all. But in general, you know, and what I'm going to do is you just create a new file, do the changes in the new file, and that way anybody else that has the project can just update and won't break anything. Posts table, I think that's all I need to do. Okay, now back in the migrations folder, I've got this update posts table. And one of the things with this particular package is it will actually kind of parse out the name of your migration so that it will know if you do like create post table, it will know that you're creating a table. If you do update, it will know that you're updating. So if you see in the migrations file for the create, it did a schema create with the name of the posts. But since it's already been created, I did an update, so it's pulling in the posts table. And now I can just add in the new column. Soft deletes. Okay. And yeah, I'm not gonna worry about the down. Okay, so now if I run the migration again, right, and the soft deletes should be there. There we go, deleted that. Yay. So that's that. Next thing I want to do is two more migrations, just go through real quick. Users, it'll probably just be username, email, and password, I think is all I would really need right now. And then comments, which are going to also tie into the users table. So that'll be, I'll need the comment and the user ID and the timestamps for all that stuff. So I'll just do a quick generate migration. Username will be a string. Email will be a string. And password will be a string. And users. Create users table. Okay. Oh yeah, I have no space, yep. And yeah. And nope. That. And that should work. Awesome, and I'll just copy that again. For comments, so it'll be the comment, it's a string, I'll do a text. And user ID. It'll be an integer. And then it's going to be a create comments table.
So how does it know that it should create MySQL syntax as opposed to Postgre? Is it in the configuration?
In the configurations, if I go to the database configurations, you get your default, this is the default configuration. So then I can set that, these connections down here are the, using one of these keys.
I see.
So, I mean, I typically get rid of the rest of this stuff because I'm,
The really nice thing about that too is the keys don't have to be the type of database. They can be whatever keys you want.
Yeah.
They just have it set up by default. So you can have infinitely many databases of the same type, but different databases too.
yeah, and that's helpful if you're using, you know, different providers for your data, and they're both MySQL and MySQL databases. So you could set these names specifically to one thing, and then in your database commands, you can change which connection you're using. But you know, for this, I'm just sticking with the defaults, which is MySQL. And I think those should be pretty well set up. Creating a users table, got the, I don't know what's going on with the, I don't know what's going on with the generators package. String, username. I won't worry about soft deletes for that one. And then this is probably going to be messed up too. Yep. What happened? I'll do text. I think they're supposed to be.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
They're comma separated. I'm thinking there might need to be a space between the comma. If I remember correctly, I think I've had that problem before. So this is going to be user ID, and it's going to be unsigned. And I will soft delete those. And okay, so that's all good to go. Everything is saved.
You got a bad character.
Oh yeah. All right, thank you. And if I migrate it, everything's good. So now in the database, should be updated with the users and comments. All right. Good. Username, email, password, and timestamps, comments, the comment, the user ID. I'm not going to worry about the foreign keys right now, but there is a way in the migrations to add foreign keys so that you can tie this user ID into the user's table. I'm not going to go into it right now, but I mean it's pretty handy, and I think it seems to be a pretty standard use case is to create a file that is specifically for foreign keys, so that you would have all your tables created in your migrations, and then have a migration that's specifically for creating all the foreign keys. But okay. Let's see, what time are we at? A few more minutes here. So that's basically our all our database stuff. So we've got everything up and running. Our next thing is going to be to tie in our models to the database. And that's actually using the Eloquent ORM that ships with Laravel. It's fairly simple. And there's actually even a generator package for it. Models are going to live in here. There's already a user model. This comes by default. And this actually makes logging in and the authorization and also the password reminders. A lot of the boilerplate is actually pretty much taken care of. I think the only changes that need to be made are in the auth configuration. But I think everything's pretty much set up. So it tells you what the table is. It sets a hidden parameter for password, so that way if you're doing a select on the users table, it's not going to show the password field, but it actually automatically hashes the password, so it's not like it shows the actual password. There's some other stuff as far as getting the passwords and reminder emails. So I'm going to create two more models, one for post, one for comments, and the generator package does that as well. And let's see what the... So you can change the path. So if you have it in if you're creating like a separate package, you can set the path, template path, if you have a different scaffolding template thing. And so basically all I have to do is pass in the model name. So we're going to have a post, and standard is that model names are the singular of the table name. So we have a posts table, so our model is going to be post. We have a comment table, so our model is going to be comment. And that should be it. So back in our models. It extends the Eloquent, so that way we can use the ORM. Fillable, this is so that you can do mass assignment. And so that way you can add a whole bunch of stuff in at once. And yeah, we'll actually do that. So you basically just put in the column names that you want to be able to have mass assigned. So comment and user ID. I think that's it. The other thing I like, you don't need to do this because it's kind of automatic, but the setting the table name, I think is pretty handy. That way, if later on you want to create a new table, you don't have to add anything. You just have to change the table name. but I think by convention, it's going to look for the table that's the plural of the model name. And let's see, posts. I think post fillable will be title, body, user ID. And really, that's about it. I mean, we could start coding to those models right now. And in fact, I will do a simple one just to show how it's possible. To start off with, I'm just going to do everything in the routes, and I'll probably end up creating controllers for all this stuff on a future meetup. And because with the controllers, we can then inject repositories so that our repositories are actually using the eloquent models and making all the data for us, and then having the controllers, or having the interfaces injected into the controllers. But I think that's going to get a little bit too much for the next 10 minutes that I've got. So I'm just going to do things in the routes. So the first thing, I'm just going to set up a fairly simple form. Not even a form, I'll just set up a just like a button that will simulate a form. And the way this is working is just, it's the route class, and it's doing a GET request, and it's going to look for post. And I'm going to echo out. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to do a form. Okay. I'm trying to figure out the easiest way to do this, but I'll just do a view because I think that'll make it a lot simpler. So the GET request for the post, so it's going to be laravel-austin.dev/post, and I'm going to create a view that's just called post form, and in the views here, I'll just create a file that's called postform.blade.php. And by putting the .blade.php in there, that's just that tells it that it's going to be using the blade syntax, which I'm not even sure I'm going to use for this. And I think I have a, there we go. Little boilerplate skeleton code right there. So with the blade syntax, I can do something like this. You know what, I'll just post it back to itself. So in using the blade syntax, the double curlies are to print everything in between them. This is Laravel code to open the form. There's a number of parameters that you can add in here. If you don't put any parameters, it's going to default to doing a post to the same route that you're on. So this would be like doing, I don't even remember all the parameters. Method. Yeah, I don't even remember, but that's fine because it's going to be default anyway. So basically, this is just going to do a post request to laravel.austin.dev/posts. I'll do form close. And I don't know all this stuff. I'll just set the user ID manually for now. Don't mind my horrible HTML skills. It's body. Oh yeah, there's a title also. And I think that should be it. So if we go to Laravel dev/post, there we go. We'll set the ID to 1. Title, this is the title, and this is the post, and it should give a big fat error. Yes, because it's looking for a post route to the post route, and it's not there. So now all we have to do is add in, instead of route get, or just do a route post. To post. Okay, and for now we'll just kind of see everything that's being passed in. This little handy feature here, probably one of the coolest things about Laravel, is this die dump, which is a, I think it's just this. So then it's basically just shorthand for die var dump your variable, and it's super handy. If we go back here, resubmit, it will just give us a nice, this shows all the inputs. So that was the input all is basically just everything that we just posted from the form. And up here, this token, this is automatically added for the cross-site request forgery. If you want to make sure that nobody can post to your site that's not on your site, you can add in as the CSRF filter.
That's to prevent double submission, or?
Well, yeah, I guess you could use it for that, but it's for if somebody is running like a script on their site that is trying to like spam bots, that kind of thing, that are trying to post to your form, they won't have that token. So you can check the tokens and make sure that it's actually a legitimate request coming from your site. And this is automatically injected. It used to be in version 3, you could add it in, but now it's just automatic. So it's always there to use. I think if you, I think it's actually shown in the source code. Yeah, so it actually injects it into the source. Although I think.
Is it automatically checked?
What's that?
Is it automatically checked?
It's not automatically checked. You would have to go through a filter, and I mean the filter's already set up. It's just a matter of adding it into the, where is it? Yeah, so this is the filter. And it's just checking the session that you have with the input. And really all we'd have to do to add it is just add in a filter here. Yeah, and that's all we need to stop cross-site request forgeries. So yeah, that's simple. And I don't think I have any way to test that, but okay. So now we know what's in the end. What's
Does in the source of your browser inspect element and remove the source code?
Oh yeah, and trying. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what happens. Let's experiment. And let's delete that. Now let's submit it and see the fun. There we go. Token mismatch. Okay. Now, if we want to see the individual inputs, we can do input get, and then whatever we named the form field. Title. Body. So that's basically, we'll kind of do the same thing as we had just done. So user ID, title. Yeah, so that's basically all we're doing. Now, to get it into the database, all we have to do is create a new post. So our post is going to be a new post. And then we just start adding in. There's actually easier ways to do this, or quicker ways to do this, but for now, I'll just do it like this. And so we're creating the new post, which is actually pulling in this post model. We're assigning the parameters to the post, and then we will save it. And we could, at this point, check to make sure it's saved correctly. There's a whole bunch of validation we could do against it. We could validate in the model itself so that every time it hits the save method, it automatically validates. For now, I'm just going to do just a redirect. Let's do done. Now let's add a message. And we can also add in session, I think flash variables to,
Flash.
Yeah.
So that's built in?
Yeah. And it actually inspects, so if you want to do, I was doing this out of habit, but it's the do width and it's the parameter of the first one, I think. Okay. So message. Yeah, so this is going to be the session variable, the flash message that gets set, and then that's the message. Just kind of as a shorthand, it will inspect this so that if you have this on here, it will make whatever is after this with the session variable, and then whatever's in here becomes the message, which is a little pretty handy shortcut. just echo that out. So that should be it. Does anybody see anything wrong with it? Okay. I mean, it's pretty basic. Okay, so we'll stick with user ID 1. There we go. Simple as that. And now in the table, in the database, we should have title, post, oops. And one last thing is getting all the information. So if we, let's see, let's do blog. So we have our blog set up and we want to return all that information from the database. It's just a matter of so this is going to go to the post model and just get everything that's in the posts and assign it to this variable. And then we can just loop through each of those posts. I'll just var dump the post. That actually, if I return it, it would actually show up. Another kind of a cool thing that Laravel does is if you return the Eloquent models, it will format it as JSON for you. So now if we hit it, it's actually going to be a JSON encoded string. So if you were creating APIs or something like that, it would automatically do that for you. Although nobody actually does that, it seems, because it's not the best practice to let your API run off of magic stuff that happens in the background, but it's still pretty handy. And I guess that's it for now. So basically we got, set up our migrations to get all the tables set up. Ran the migrations to get everything set up. Simple little form to submit a post, set up all the models for the post, the users, and the comments, and being able to actually add a post and make it work. So this will all be on GitHub if you have a Was it Laravel Austin? Yeah, that's it. So I'll put all this, in fact, I'll do it right now. I'll post all this to, yeah, that's fine. Got all my Vagrant stuff, but that's not a problem. Oops.
No.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Next meetup, merge groups.
Yes. Rebase. Okay, what just happened?
Cried.
Okay, so everything should be up to date. All right, that's it. Next meetup is the 13th, I believe, of May. May 13th, yes. Probably do some more of this, get more into the user. I think that's kind of a really cool aspect of Laravel, is being able to set up all your user authentication and the validation and the logging in and password reminders. I mean, could get that done in like half an hour, you know, get a full featured user management thing set up. So probably talk about that. I think Wes is going to do something, maybe said, y'all, have y'all heard? Yeah. Maybe Anthony might be here and do something. So, yeah, so that's it. Thanks for coming out.
All right.